Our next guest is a private equity expert who worked at Salomon Brothers and was a partner at the Blackstone Group. He was also director of the Office of Management and Budget in the Reagan administration.
One of the wonderkins that came in with Reagan in the 1980s. David Stockman, of course, he believes we are now in a new housing bubble, a bubble in danger of popping as soon as the Fed stops stimulating the economy. His new book is out in a few weeks. It's called The Great Deformation, The Corruption of Capitalism in America. Also with us are Diana Olick, who reported on the worries of a new bubble earlier this week. Good to see you both. David, how is it possible a few years after a devastating recession that devastated our housing market, how would it be possible that we're already in a bubble again, in your view?
Well, it's just starting, but the Fed is a serial bubble machine, and I think we're now entering housing bubble 2.0. There is a flood of fast money coming into the housing sector from Wall Street, and we have absurdly low mortgage rates on Main Street. And you put those together, and they're lifting the market rapidly right now, but it's not sustainable. When interest rates reverse and begin to normalize, the fast money will scatter as fast as it came in, and then I think the bubble will splatter because there won't be natural buyers left in the market as interest rates go up.
But isn't it, isn't the point to stabilize the market so that it's on a more stable footing before we actually see rates rise all that much? That's why the Fed has said they're going to keep rates in place until 2015.
Well, I don't know what the timing of this is. I just know it's absurd to take the mortgage rate on 30 years from 5.5, where it was in late 2008, to 3.3, where it was just recently. What that does is increase the buying power of someone who has a mortgage or has, can spend $1,000 a month on a mortgage by 50%, from $225,000 to $350,000. So it's created artificial demand, but we can't keep interest rates this low for a long period of time because after inflation and taxes, 30-year money is earning nothing. It's been a huge mistake. And once interest rates start to rise, where are the buyers going to be? This cycle,
but David, is it really about the interest rates right now, or is it, as I agree with you that there's a bubble, definitely, but I think it's driven by the investors getting in there, that is the hedge funds, the private equity pouring millions and billions of dollars into distressed properties. That's what's pushing prices up in the double digits in places like Phoenix and Las Vegas and creating these bubbles that, as you say, I agree, are unsustainable. If private equity decides to pull out suddenly, which I'm not sure they will because the folks I talk to say they want to get that rental demand, but if they pull out, isn't that the problem? Not so much that the mortgage rates?
Yes, but 2 points. One is they're riding into Scottsdale, Arizona, not on the back of a John Deere lawnmower, but they're riding in essentially on a Hoover vacuum cleaner, sucking up all the inventory, driving prices up, and hoping to attract the doctors, dentists, and Chinese so they can get out. But secondly,
what would you do if you're Ben Bernanke then? How would you counteract what you see as this bubble right now? What would you do?
I would confess that you are now in the Bernanke bear trap. Because when they came in early 90s, interest rates were 7%. The Fed took them all the way down to 1%. The fast money made a killing on the S&L busted real estate. And then in 2001, they did it again when interest rates went from 6 to 1 in the early 2000s. But now we're starting at 0. There's no place for interest rates to go except up. And that means that the buying power of the first-time buyer who's, buried in student loans, or the trade-up buyer who's now retiring and is going to be a trade-down seller won't be there as interest rates rise.
So when do you expect them to rise? What would be your best guess in terms of when rates start actually moving?
I think they have to start moving up over the next 1 or 2 years because we're getting into a currency war all the way around the world as a result of all the central banks keeping money rates so absurdly low that it's not sustainable, and it's creating a dynamic dynamic that really cannot hold for very much longer.
Diana, what about all of the inventory still to come to market that's on bank books? I mean, they've got a lot of foreclosed property that they want to unload, but they're not doing it all at once because they don't want to crash this market. That's still hanging over this market, isn't it?
Right. There is an overhang. You're talking about 5 million properties that are either in some stage of the foreclosure process or are currently delinquent. And those are coming through the banks at a much faster clip as we finally got past all the robo-signing and all that.
Well, you can't have a bubble if you got all this supply, can you?
Right. Well, but we don't know how fast that supply is going to be because the banks have been real tricky about this. They say they're putting it out, but we know that there is shadow inventory being held on those banks. The thing is, again, there are those investors out there who are waiting for this supply. The question I have to keep saying is, how long are they going to hold on to these investments? Is it that rent to own? Is it that, the buy to rent phase that they're saying they're reaping so much reward? Or once those prices, which we saw jack up 8% last month, that's just crazy. That historical is 3 to 4% in any good times. If we continue to see that and the investors say, wait, I'm never going to get the kind of returns like I'm seeing right now, and they dump those properties on, that's going to be a lot worse than the banks dropping the foreclosures on.
I think that's the big point. The big fast money funds from Wall Street are not natural owners of single-family homes in Scottsdale, Arizona that have gardens, lawns, crabgrass, and trees that are infested with bugs. So therefore, there are no economies of scale. They're doing nothing but bringing in cheap, fast money. And if they think that the interest rates are going up and the cap rate is going up, they'll get out as fast as they came in. This isn't good news. It's bad news.
All right, we'll leave it there. Good to see you both. Thank you so much.